on a radiant spring morning in Manhattan, May the 25th, 1979. 6-year-old Etan Patz kissed his mother goodbye, stepped outside the building at 113 Prince Street in Soho, and began the short walk, just 2 short city blocks, to the bus stop. It was the first time his parents allowed him to walk alone. He wore a future flight captain pilot's cap, a blue corduroy jacket, jeans, and blue sneakers with bright stripes. They never saw him alive again. Etan never got on the bus. That morning was the beginning of the night that would haunt New York and all America. When his teacher realized he was absent from school, no alarm was raised when the sun sank further and Etan didn't return home. Panic gripped his parents. His mother called the police. The search began that evening and extended for days. Nearly 100 officers, bloodhounds, combing sidewalks, alleys, basements, sewers, rooftops. Posters bearing his face, that gentle, hopeful face, were plastered across Manhattan. For decades, that face became a symbol, not only of a missing child, but of a national trauma. Etan Patz became the first child in America whose disappearance was leveraged on milk cartons, billboards, media outlets. A catalyst that changed how families, police forces, and society as a whole perceived children's safety. As years turned into decades, the case grew cold, no credible leads, no physical trace, no body, no final closure. In 2001, 22 years after he vanished, Etan was declared legally dead, though the mystery remained unresolved. But the memory of Etan Patz refused to fade. In 2010, the Office of the District Attorney in Manhattan reopened the case. Investigators turned their attention to every possible lead, old suspects, previous tips, even basements in Soho that might conceal hidden clues. In April 2012, law enforcement teams excavated a basement at a property on Prince Street, raising hopes, but after days of digging, nothing conclusive emerged. No remains, no evidence. Then, in 2012, the breakthrough came, at least what appeared to be one. A man emerged as a suspect, Pedro Hernandez, a former convenience store stock clerk who had worked near the bus stop where Etan was last seen. Investigators received a tip that Hernandez had allegedly boasted, at a church group years earlier, that he had killed a child in New York. Soon after, under intense interrogation by police, Hernandez made a chilling confession. He claimed he had lured Etan into the store's basement with a soda, then strangled him. He said he placed the still-living child into a plastic bag, put him in a box, and dumped the box in alley trash. These admissions formed the core of the prosecution's case. Crucially, however, there was no physical evidence, no body, no DNA, no forensic trace tied to Hernandez. The case was built almost entirely on his own words. In November 2012, a grand jury indicted him on charges of second-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. Hernandez pleaded not guilty. His defense attorneys immediately raised serious concerns. Hernandez had been diagnosed with a mental disorder. His IQ was reportedly around 70, at the borderline of intellectual disability. They argued his confessions could be delusional, the result not of factual memory, but of a disturbed mind. The first trial in 2015 ended in a hung jury. One juror refused to convict, citing moral doubts about relying solely on the defendant's word. But prosecutors retried him. After 9 days of deliberation in February 2017, the jury found him guilty of both kidnapping and murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The father of Etan, 38 years after he last saw his son, called Hernandez a monster. "You threw him in the garbage," he said. For many, it felt like justice, finally, after nearly 4 decades. But deep shadows remained. The fact that Etan's body was never discovered. The absence of physical proof. Confession-only verdicts always carry the danger of doubt. For some, the case was far from closed. Then came the twist that reopened everything. On July 21, 2025, 46 years after Etan disappeared, a federal appeals court ruled that the 2017 conviction was invalid. The reason? The trial judge gave the jury improper instructions about how to interpret Hernandez's confessions. The jury had asked if the first confession, made before Hernandez was read his rights, was invalid. Should they disregard the later taped confessions? The judge said no. The appeals court said that was wrong. The jury should have been allowed to consider disregarding them if they concluded that the initial confession was coerced or involuntary. That clear and prejudicial error demanded a new trial or Hernandez's release. Just days ago, on November 25, 2025, prosecutors announced they intend to retry Hernandez once again. A third trial will be launched, and jury selection must begin by June 1, 2026, or Hernandez will be freed. Now, after 46 years, the case that changed America's awareness of missing children is alive again. The world, and a weary, aging family, waits. Will this trial finally reveal the truth? Or will it open new wounds, raise new doubts, leave new questions? Because the name Etan Patz is no longer just a case file. It's a buried memory, a vanished childhood, and a challenge to justice itself. What really happened that day in 1979? Did Pedro Hernandez act alone? Or at all? Will we ever know where Etan is, or what became of him? For a child who boarded no bus, whose life never reached beyond that morning walk. The city that never sleeps now holds its breath again.